Dear students, let's start the discussion on today's newspaper, that is 23rd May 2017. The first article, Iran votes for reform. To understand this article, you need to understand the establishment in Iran. And the second is, what are the powers of various organs and how the president is placed in that. And the present president, Mr. Rouhani, who won the elections recently, what are the challenges before him? We need to see the challenges from the dimension of Iran itself, our domestic challenges, and then foreign challenges. In the foreign challenges, what are the regional challenges and the challenges from Saudi Arabia? Challenges from United States of America, that is the Trump administration. And we need to understand entire this thing from the Iran nuclear deal perspective. It is also called Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action. So let's come to the establishment of Iran. You have supreme leader. He is supposed to safeguard the Islamic nature of the nation. After the Iranian revolution, revolutionary guards took over the power, and once the Shah was overthrown, then the supreme leader's office has come into existence, and he has got a final say on all the matters related to Iran. How the supreme leader is elected? So there is an office called as group of experts, and these people, they take up they elect the supreme leader, and the supreme leader, or this is also called assembly of experts. The supreme leader will appoint two important councils. One is guardian council, and the next is expediency council. So what is a guardian council? So it has to guard the Islamic nature of the state and Islamic nature of the institutions in Iran. So it consists of, or it conducts all the elections, the guardian council, including the elections to assembly of experts. And guardian council also has to approve every law passed by the parliament. It sees the laws from Islamic perspective and tries to pass that on. Whenever there is a conflict between the parliament and guardian council, it is the responsibility of the expediency council to approve that. And this is what is the thing. And there is one more important function of the guardian council. Who have to contest the elections, presidential elections, also need to be cleared by it. Mr. Ahmadinejad, who was the conservative before, and his candidature was rejected by the guardian council. So finally, some 6 people are being approved to contest in presidential election. So one important takeaway point for us is this. The religious establishment, conservative establishment, it controls the entire democratic structure in Iran. So non-elected establishment to an extent controls the elected establishment in Iran because of the theocratic nature of the state. Now let's come to the president's powers. The president's powers are not unlimited, or I can say it as they are subjected to the authority of guardian council, subjected to the authority of the supreme leader. So that's why being extremely liberal is not possible in Iran. Hassan Rouhani is expected to navigate among the constraints which are there in this establishment. So let's see the challenges before the new president. One is Iran nuclear deal. It was taken forward by the President Rouhani, and his foreign minister was very helpful, and there was a direct contact between the foreign ministers of US and Iran. The Secretary of State, Mr. Kerry, he was always in line with Mr. Jafrani. So in this case, what are the challenges? The first is the foreign domestic challenges. Let us see. Mr. Rouhani has promised for raising the employment by opening up the economy. By greater integration with the world, he promised employment opportunities will rise. But unemployment rate is as high as 12%. The next issue, which the people are expecting from Rouhani, is about civil liberties. It is very much something a no-go for conservative establishment. And on the foreign side, if you see the Trump, one of the election rhetoric of the Trump is to kill the nuclear deal. But once he became president, he started talking about removing restrictions. But it is just remained as a rhetoric if you can see his Saudi Arabia visit recently. And also we need to remember that Iran nuclear deal is not a bilateral deal. It is P5+1 deal. So that's why the United States cannot arbitrarily get away from this. And US also has relaxed the sanctions and previously Republican dominated establishment did not approve the relaxation of sanctions. It is executive order of the President Obama that has relaxed the sanctions. In this context, the removal of sanctions, Mr. Trump will approve or not is a major question. And the next is, coming to Saudi Arabia, you all know that a cold war is going on between Saudi Arabia and Iran. So, in Yemen, Syria, Lebanon, everywhere, there is a cold war between Iran and Saudi Arabia. There is a shift of American establishment again towards Saudi Arabia. Previously, before Obama, America's policy is related to dual containment of Iran and Iraq. Now, Obama wanted to remove United States from this stranglehold and raise the decisional choices. That is one of the reasons why he was behind Iran nuclear deal. And Iran nuclear deal to an extent brought Iran in close association with the United States of America and the Western world. It was opposed by Israel and also by Saudi Arabia. So again, Mr. Trump wants to get back into this, the dual control or else dual containment as a policy towards West Asia. Let us see how it goes on. The United States of Myanmar. So you know that in the case of Myanmar, as it became independence, there were many of the ethnic groups. Even today, Myanmar is known for its diversity of ethnicities of the people. Then came a conference that is called Panglong Conference. How these ethnic groups shall live together under one nation, that is Burma. Later, in 1947, People Freedom League, it has come into power and it wanted to accommodate all ethnicities and power sharing has to be equal for different ethnicities. But it did not work in its implementation. Non-Burmese people, they felt that the system is working against them. And slowly in 1962, there was a coup and the civilian government was taken away by the military government. And then onwards, any thirst or any demand for federation is been seen as anti-national. You know that Thein Sein, he was the military general and State Peace and Development Council chairman. It's a kind of union government in Myanmar, SPDC. And his party, Union Solidarity and Development Party, it is also opposed to this. But in 2013, once a new constitution has come into existence, things started changing in Myanmar. You know that National League for Democracy, headed by Ms. Aung San Suu Kyi, is in power. She is also now the head of this conference. So in this context, what we can expect, this party is preaching for a federalism. So if the federalism has to come up in Myanmar, what kind of federalism it has to be? So there are many words he used over here. Either it can be a symmetrical federalism, asymmetric federalism, dual federalism, creative, cooperative, non-territorial federalism. These are the words which are used. Symmetrical federalism means all federal units will have equal powers. Asymmetrical federalism, obviously minorities are going to oppose to this because the majority of the population will get greater powers in an asymmetrical or unequal federalism. And then existence of two different sets, it is called a dual federalism, that is not workable and it will not satisfy either of them. And then cooperative federalism, and I'm not sure that how come it can work in the case of ethnically diverse country. And then finally what the author suggests is non-territorial federalism, a kind of giving autonomy to every ethnic tribe rather than providing for a geography based federalism or geographically distributed federalism. Because in a common geography, there is a majority and minority and multiple tribes that are existing. So that's why let's not take the territories towards federalism. Let's take the human groups towards federalism. That's what is another aspect of discussion. But the objective over here is all the tribal people or all the ethnical groups, they have to work under one common umbrella, that is the national government. But they will be provided with autonomy with regard to developmental and other aspects related to culture, etc. So that's what this article talks about. So in this context, the military establishment did not totally transfer the powers to democratically elected government. It means still it is not a complete democracy in Myanmar. And military is talking about flourishing and disciplined democracy. So what does that exactly mean? A disciplined democracy, what does that mean? We are not yet clear over here. So the author suggests for non-territorial federalism. Let's talk about the results once this Panglong conference has been done away with. The next is message from Riyadh. This article talks about President Trump's visit to Saudi Arabia. Mr. Trump, he has made Saudi Arabia as his first destination to visit after becoming the President of United States of America. Now, here we need to discuss what is the situation in the West Asia. As I said to you in this article, the before article, there is dual control or containment. Both are the policies of United States. Dual containment means containing both Iran and Iraq. Surprisingly, Iran, Iraq were the friends of United States before. So immediately after the Second World War, the two pillars of US West Asia policy or Middle East policy, it was on Iran and Saudi Arabia maintaining a strategic balance between two. And it got disturbed once after the Iranian revolution has occurred. Now, President Obama has created new opportunities for our engagement with Iran, and Trump wanted to reverse the same. So that's what is message from Riyadh is. US is going back to its old norm, moving towards Riyadh. And President Trump, who has criticized the human rights record of the Saudi Arabia, he started ignoring the same. And also he is silent on Saudi Arabia's war on Yemen. So it clearly shows that the changing voice of Mr. Trump. Hack if you can. So it is about EVMs, electronic voting machines. After UP elections and Delhi municipal elections, various political parties have raised objections on EVMs, and Election Commission from time to time clarified that EVMs are fail-safe. The reason is there are technical safeguards and also administrative safeguards. Technically, it is a standalone machine. And today we are bringing in VVPATs, voter verifiable paper audit trail, VVPATs we are bringing in. And then the administrative trials include random checks and post-manufacturing checks and allocations and trials before elections are being conducted. So this all provides for a safety net to the EVMs. And we have to see the use of the EVMs from the perspective what ballot papers or how the ballot paper removal helped us. If you take the ballot paper removal, it has reduced the electoral malpractices. So EVMs have increased the accuracy, result declaration of elections very quick. So that's why moving back to ballot paper is not advised. And providing for greater accuracy or satisfaction to the voter is more important. And compulsory VVPATs can solve this particular problem in India. And again, the citizens of the country shall have confidence over the election system. Then only the election system and democratic process can sustain. And leaders also have to apply a restraint in criticizing the election process, keeping the greater good of the country into consideration. Let's get into the open-ed page. An unequal burden. This is also about climate change topic. So when you come to the climate change, now what we are going to discuss in this article. So the Paris Agreement, Green Climate Fund, issues of Green Climate Fund and stock and flows of this greenhouse gases. The Paris Agreement it has taken up for INDCs, and Marrakesh Conference it also has spoken about how these INDCs have to be verified. INDC stands for Intended Nationally Determined Contributions. So in this context, every country has given INDCs, and most of the countries, especially developing countries INDCs, are subjected to financial and technological help from the developed world. And developed world is not ready to give the same. And second thing is, if all the INDCs are put together, the maximum temperature that can be retained, a rise can be controlled, is at 3 degrees C. But scientific community is talking about limiting it to 2 degrees C. And this is an ambitious goal. And Paris conference wants to take it down to 1.5 degrees C. So in this context, INDCs which are agreed, if they are moving forward, when all the countries are taking the commitments forward, slowly it can be renegotiated to get it to 2 degrees C. But however, United States of America, which is the largest emitter till the China took it over, wants to move out from this Paris Agreement commitments. Whatever the funds allocated by President Obama are not going to be renewed by President Trump. He is a non-believer in climate change. So it's going to derail the entire process of Paris conference itself. That is one thing. And Green Climate Fund, I think it has come up in Cancun conference in 2011, if I am not wrong. And this GCF, it is supposed to be $100 billion. And accounting of GCF, how it has to be, is the question. And this can consist of the funds from private sector and public sector. Most of the funds are going to come from private sector. And private sector funds are more like investments. So private sector is not intended to invest in adoptability where there will be no returns. So it means that the GCF $100 billion, the first problem is the time is extended till 2025. It was before 2020. After 2020, every year, $100 billion shall be kept aside by the developed world towards climate change. But however, it was extended to 2025 now. And the accumulation of the funds is at a very slow pace. And the next is, this public sector is also not very active with regard to the fund allocation under the Global Climate Fund. And the third point, when you come to stock and flows, if you talk about whatever the carbon dioxide, greenhouse gases, which are already existing, we call it as stock. And then we have flow. So what is the stock? Who are responsible for the stock? That is industrialized world. And it has created a lot of wealth in the industrialized world. Now, China and India, these are responsible for flow. And India is a very distant third. China and US are almost close to each other. So in this context, how the flow has to be regulated, that's been discussed. Who has to take the responsibility for the stock? It also has to be the priority. Before in Rio conference, the common but differentiated responsibilities they are about the stock. And now the major emphasis is on flow. That is what has been spoken about. Death of patronage. So Indian politics are often described as patronage politics. Patron-client relationships exist between politicians. It is due to populistic measures, playing to different groups, castes, etc. If populism has to work, a populistic program has to be there, and also there has to be strong delivery machinery, strong intermediaries, and also there has to be an establishment which can convert these populistic measures into votes. But however, if you see UP elections, Akhilesh Yadav government, it has taken up various populistic measures which could have brought him a success. But however, the BJP has got a thumping majority. Is that an indication that the populistic programs or patronism in Indian politics is dying? That is what is the question. Now, minimum government, a limited government. Now understand what is a limited government. It means a government which has to confine itself to save the lives and properties of the citizens. And business is not the business of the government. So it means it has to be left to the free markets. Prime Minister Modi has promised for minimum government and maximum governance. But however, either you take demonetization or if you talk about the relation or else new programs which are being launched by the government, MG Narega, all these are just the increasing scope of the government rather than decreasing the scope of government. So the government or Modi's government has to move forward on the promise of minimum government. And what the wonders minimum government can do, Hong Kong and Singapore are examples. But you need to understand another point. Hong Kong and Singapore are city-states. But India is too diverse a country just to be a market state. And it is too diverse a country with inequalities for the markets alone to play a role. That's what the point which I also need to remember along with this article. Now let's come to the news page. The Trump in West Asia, peace in West Asia. So let us see how the outcomes of this particular Israel visit of Trump will be. And then the German government is divided on Greek debt relief. Before Brexit, there was argument on Grexit, Greece exiting the European Union, and it can lead to domino effect. Finally, it was solved. But however, from that day onwards, the foreign ministry wants to have a soft approach towards Greece. Finance ministry wants to have a tough approach towards Greece. So that debate is still continuing on in Germany. Asian ministers push for China-led free trade pact. Once the Trump became president, the Trans-Pacific Partnership is one which he has wanted to close. He closed it. And competitor to this is RCEP, Regional Comprehensive and Economic Partnership, which has been spearheaded by China. And most of the Asian countries, they do not have the other choice now. And they are promoting a free trade pact supported by China. That's what this article talks about. Let's go to the front page. Social boycott for triple talaq. When we talk about this social boycott, you know, the triple talaq is under judicial scrutiny, and this triple talaq is supposed to be socially boycotted, and it is a solution which is being mooted by All India Muslim Personal Law Board. Rather than banning the triple talaq, declaring it as illegal, let will have a social constraint on the triple talaq. That's what is alternative proposed. And on the news page, let's talk about the separatists slam the BJP leaders. So it's all about the movement, and we don't need to worry about this. I am more interested in this Beam Army. Dalits are seeking a separate identity. Now here I want to talk to you about tribal and Dalits. The tribals do not have their own identity because tribals are too diverse. But Dalits are able to have a consolidated political identity, and a Beam Army is been coming up as a reinforcement of the Dalit identity. So from that perspective, remember this particular point. And coming to NSG, no room for India yet in NSG. That is what the China is talking about. So what NSG stands for, Nuclear Suppliers Group. What are the arguments of India and China on this? China wants to have a preset conditionalities for non-NPT members to enter into NSG. What India argues is, NSG is not a nuclear proliferation control regime. It is just an export control regime. It is not meant for non-proliferation. It is meant for export control of nuclear materials. So, signing the NPT shall not be a precondition for joining the NSG. And second, it also cites the example of France, which was not an NPT signatory when it was part of NSG, when it joined NSG. And the second strategy China is following is hyphening the India and Pakistan. If India comes and Pakistan qualifies for the same, why can't Pakistan enter into the NSG? That's what is Chinese question over here. And Japan looks back at a war theater. You know, Kohima and Manipur war. That is Kohima-Impal war, it is called as. This is the most deadliest war in the Second World War in Asia. And many of the people of Kohima-Impal, they suffered in German army hands. Now in Japan army hands, which is part of Axis powers. And Japan, it wants to build a war memorial for its soldiers. Obviously, it will be opposed by local communities. And Japanese ambassador has expressed a deep regret for whatever has happened. Or he did not express a regret, but he is expressed is sorry for the things which have happened. That's what we can say it as. So it is just coming as a memorial. That's what we need to remember. And let's go to the business page. In the business page, India-Africa TAC is different, says Jaitley. So African Development Bank meeting is going on. In this context, why China is resented in Africa and why India is equated with China in Africa? Because all the developed world, it has exploited Africa of its resources. Finally, it has led to ethnical clashes among the members, and it is also a reason for instability. It means African resources did not create wealth in Africa. So here, India do not believe the same. India talks about a win-win situation and a mutual benefit. And India clearly states that it do not believe in any export of conditionalities with regard to African development or African loans from India are concerned. That's what is been issued by Finance and Defense Minister Arun Jaitley. So these are the articles. And smallest nation joins Solar Alliance. So you know that during Paris Agreement, the Solar Alliance, it has been mooted by the Prime Minister Narendra Modi with headquarters in India. And India also tried to allocate around $2 billion to the International Solar Alliance. And if another country has joined, so it is, these are the issues which you have to remember. So this is what is the discussion today. Now, Nauru is the country's name. And the notes, I need some time to restart the notes because I have a hectic schedule these days. Because as of now you are going for the prelims, you need not worry about that. So I will try to upload all the notes by the weekend. So today in the evening I will do the notes for yesterday and today, and I will try to upload it because I have to travel to Vijayawada today. I have some work out there. So I'm really sorry for this, and thank you very much.